You stole my life for $47,000. Now I'm taking yours back.
The wife, the 5 men, and the $47,000 mistake. You think you know the monster under your bed? Try the one sleeping next to you. For 15 years, I, Jake Dalton, worked 2 jobs, bought the flowers, and worshipped the ground my wife, Danielle, walked on. I sacrificed everything for her. My reward? A 2 a.m. conversation drifting through my garage window. A conversation where I learned my wife was not only cheating with 5 different men, the dentist, the councilman, the car flipper, and 2 others, but was actively plotting to frame me for domestic violence, seize the house, take every last penny, and leave me for dead. They called me a beaten dog, a weak-willed idiot with no spine, no money, and no fight left. They were wrong. They were so dead wrong. This is the story of how I walked into the pit they dug for me and completely turned it into their own public, humiliating grave. Hey everyone, I'm Jake, and this is the true story of how I served up the coldest dish of justice Oak Haven, Vermont has ever seen. It's a messy story, filled with betrayal and absolute fury. But if you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever had your kindness mistaken for weakness, you'll want to stick around to the very end to see how I dismantled their entire world. Don't forget to gently tap that like button right now. It tells YouTube this kind of raw, real-life drama needs to be seen by more people and helps support this channel. Now let's begin. The sound of drunken laughter shouldn't have been a shock at 2 a.m. My wife, Danielle, and her friends, Lisa and Tara, did this all the time. I was in the garage, a sanctuary from the sterile perfection of the house, motor oil on my hands, fiddling with the carburetor of my '79 Camaro. I was trying to forget another night of lying awake while she snored beside me, distant and cold. Jake, so pathetic, Danielle's voice carried clearly through the still, cool air. It was a cruel, mocking tone I'd never heard her use for me before. Seriously, girls, if he knew I'd been screwing around with 5 different guys over the past 3 years, he still wouldn't have the balls to leave me. The socket wrench slipped from my hand and clattered onto the concrete floor, the sound swallowed by the deep shock consuming me. Lisa's shrill, awful cackle followed. Oh my God, Danny, you're terrible, but you're right. He's like a beaten dog. Just takes whatever you dish out. The words were like physical blows, each one landing on a part of me I thought was protected. Danielle continued, her voice growing louder, more fueled by cheap wine and her own twisted ego. Remember when I told him I was working late all those nights last summer? I was at Vince Calder's place. That man knows how to treat a woman, if you know what I mean. He's got that auto body shop and that 1968 red Charger. We did it right there on the hood last week while Jake was at his construction job. Tara's voice, the quietest one, joined the symphony of betrayal. What about the dentist, Dr. Sam? He seemed like a nice guy. Danielle scoffed, her disdain palpable. Sam's just for the dental work, though. He's not bad for a quickie in his office after hours. But Vince, that's the real deal. I stood frozen, motor oil drying on my hands, listening to the woman I'd loved for 15 years, the woman I'd worked 2 jobs to support through real estate school, describe her affairs in graphic detail. I trusted her completely. I trusted her silence. I trusted her smile. The best part, Danielle said, her voice dripping with sheer malice, is that Jake actually thinks we're happy. He brings me flowers every Friday like some lovesick teenager. It's almost sad. The final, fatal blow came from Lisa. What if he finds out? He won't, Danielle replied with chilling confidence. And even if he did, what's he going to do? He's got no spine, no money of his own since I handle all our finances. Where's he going to go? Back to his mother's trailer. The wave of laughter that followed felt like a bucket of ice water being dumped over my head, freezing my rage into a solid, clear purpose. They were right about one thing. I was weak. I was weak for loving her unconditionally. But they were wrong about everything else. I wiped my hands on a shop rag, walked quietly into the garage office, and began planning. By sunrise, I had a plan. It wasn't going to be quick, and it wasn't going to be easy, but it was going to be thorough and public. The very first thing I did was change the landscape. I got up before the sun, drove across Oak Haven to a bank she never used, and opened a new private account. I then returned to the main branch and emptied our joint checking account. All $47,000 of it. the money I had earned from countless hours of construction work. I moved every single cent into my new, secure account. Legally, the money was mine to move, but her reaction would be priceless. Next, I called a locksmith, paid him double the emergency rate, and had every single lock on the house, front door, back door, garage entry, even the shed, changed within an hour. The house was legally in my name, a detail she conveniently forgot in her alcoholic haze. When Danielle finally came downstairs at 9 a.m., hungover and squinting against the morning light, she stumbled to the front door, tried her key, and heard the new, unfamiliar clinking of a freshly set tumbler. She frowned, tried again, then her phone began to buzz immediately with bank alerts. I opened the door, a picture of calm, and handed her a cup of black coffee and a folded piece of paper. "What's this?" she slurred, her eyes still squinting. "Your eviction notice," I said, my voice flat and completely devoid of emotion. "You've got 30 days to find somewhere else to live. The house is in my name, in case you forgot." She unfolded the paper and read the official-looking print. Her face went from confused to angry, and finally, to pure, unadulterated panic. "Jake, what the heck is this?" "You're right," I said, closing the door and locking it again. "I am weak, but I'm not stupid. Game on." I watched through the window as she stood on the porch for 5 minutes, pounding on the door and screaming my name, a frantic, high-pitched noise. She finally got into her expensive BMW and peeled out of the driveway. My phone started ringing immediately, her number, Lisa's number, but I simply turned it off. The silence was magnificent. The Red Lantern was exactly the kind of dive bar you'd expect in a small Vermont town like Oak Haven. Dark wood, dim lighting, and the kind of regulars who knew everything about everyone. It was the best place to find information. "Jake Dalton, as I live and breathe," Big Mike called out as I walked in. Mike was my best friend, a bear of a man who ran his own construction crew. He had a way of solving problems with either brute force or sharp humor. "Heard you finally grew a pair." "News travels fast," I said, sliding onto the stool next to him. "Faster than you think. Danny's been calling everyone, crying about how you've lost your mind. Says you locked her out for no reason." Mike signaled the bartender for 2 beers. Of course, Mrs. Rose has a different story. Mrs. Rose, the 70-year-old widow across the street, was the undisputed queen of Oak Haven gossip. If anyone had dirt on Danielle's activities, it would be her. "What's Mrs. Rose been saying?" "Oh, just that she's got some interesting photos on her phone. Something about a red Charger in your driveway when you weren't home." Mike grinned. "She also mentioned she's thinking about starting a podcast. Oak Haven Scandals, she wants to call it." I pulled out my phone and showed Mike a photo of our family cell phone bill. "Look at this. She's been texting someone called V about 300 times a month. And look at these call times, 2 and 3 in the morning. That's not even the best part," I said, scrolling to another screenshot. "I cloned her phone last night, backed up everything to the cloud before I changed the locks." Mike's eyebrows shot up. "Is that legal?" "It's our family plan. I pay for it. I can access it," I replied, a cold certainty in my voice. I showed him a text thread between Danielle and Lisa, dated just 2 weeks ago. This was the real bomb. "Danny, if Jake ever finds out about any of this, we need to be ready. I've been documenting his anger issues in my diary. Lisa, of course, will say he's been threatening you, maybe even getting physical. No one will believe him over us. Danny, perfect. I've already talked to Sarah Mitchell about it. She says with the right story I could get the house, alimony, everything." Mike read it, his face darkening with genuine anger. "That's conspiracy, Jake. They were planning to frame you for domestic violence." "It gets better," I said, showing him a voice memo from her phone, recorded 3 days ago. I hit play, keeping the volume low. Danielle's voice. "God, Lisa, you should have seen Jake trying to be romantic last night. Flowers, candles, the whole pathetic routine. I just laid there thinking about Vince's hands on me. Jack's so boring in bed that it's like being with a dead fish. At least Vince knows what he's doing." I finished my beer. "Don't be sorry, Mike. Be helpful. I need to know everything about Vince Calder. Where he works, where he drinks, what he drives, who he knows. Everything." Mike was already on it. "That's easy. He's got that auto body shop on the edge of town. Drives a '68 Charger, cherry red. Thinks he's hot crap because he flips classic cars. Guy's a walking midlife crisis. But rumor is he owes money to some serious people in Portland. Something about a poker game that went bad. Word is he's been looking for a quick score. Interesting, I said. And who else has she been seeing? Mrs. Rose says there's been at least 3 different cars in your driveway over the past year. The Charger, Dr. Sam's Mercedes, and Pete Morrison's truck. Pete Morrison, town councilman, married to a nice woman named Janet. 2 kids. Mike, I need a favor. Name it. I need you to help me with something tomorrow night. Something that might get a little messy. Mike grinned, the anger receding into mischievous excitement. Count me in. What are we doing? We're going to give Vince Calder a bath he'll never forget. The annual Oakhaven Harvest Festival was the biggest event of the year. Danielle, of course, had a booth as one of the town's top real estate agents, or former top agent, since her boss had been receiving some interesting anonymous tips about her recent behavior. Image was everything to Danny. I watched from across Main Street as she and Lisa nervously set up her display. Vince Calder was there too, leaning against her booth in his leather jacket, preening. Dr. Sam, the dentist, was browsing the medical clinic's booth nearby. They were all in one place. I walked into the control booth where my friend Tommy was managing the big community screen. I pulled out my laptop and connected to the Wi-Fi network. I'd spent the morning preparing a special presentation using screenshots from Danny's phone and some creative, text-based voice memo editing. The screen was currently showing an ad for Morrison's Hardware, Pete Morrison's store. Perfect. At exactly 2 p.m., when the festival was packed and the crowd was at its absolute thickest, I made my move. The hardware store ad faded out. Suddenly, the big screen was displaying the text message conversation, blown up 10 times life size. Danny Dev, can't wait to see you tonight. Jake's working late again, the idiot. V to Danny, meet me at the usual place. I'll show you what a real man can do. Danny Dev, you're so much better than my pathetic husband. He has no idea what he's missing. A ripple of confusion went through the crowd. People pointed at the screen, then pointed at Danielle's booth. But I wasn't done. The next slide showed the photo Mrs. Rose had taken, Vince's red Charger in my driveway, and 2 figures in what could generously be called a compromising position against the car. The murmur became a roar of shock and disbelief. Oh my God, someone shouted. Is that Danielle Dalton? Danielle was white as a sheet. Lisa was frantically trying to pull her away from the booth, but they were already surrounded. The third slide was the coup de grace, a voice message transcription from Danny's voice memos, formatted to look like a public announcement. Announcement, personal testimonial Danielle Dalton's voice memo. Jack is so pathetic. If he knew I was screwing 5 different men, he still wouldn't have the balls to leave me. I've been with Vince, Sam, Pete, and 2 others just this month. The fool brings me flowers every Friday while I'm planning my next hookup. The crowd went utterly silent for about 3 seconds. Then the world exploded. I watched through the booth window as Janet Morrison, Pete's wife, marched across the street toward Pete, her face red with a fury I've never seen. She was carrying a half-eaten funnel cake in one hand and a cup of hot cider in the other. Pete Morrison, she screamed. You cheating bastard. The funnel cake hit Pete square in the face. The hot cider followed immediately, drenching his chest. Vince tried to slink away, but Mike appeared out of nowhere. He accidentally bumped into Vince, sending the car flipper stumbling backward. Vince landed face first in the mud wrestling pit that the fire department had set up for charity. He looked like a startled sewer rat. The crowd roared with laughter and cheers. I chose that moment to make my grand entrance. I walked calmly through the crowd toward my wife. Hello, Danny, I said pleasantly. Enjoying the festival? She looked at me with pure, murderous hatred. You did this. Did what? I'm just here for the apple cider and the community spirit. Though, I have to say, this year's entertainment is really something special. Dr. Sam tried to slip away, but Mrs. Rose, bless her heart, was ready with her phone. Dr. Sam, she called out loudly. Smile for the camera. This is going straight to my new podcast, Oakhaven Scandals. Sam froze like a deer in headlights. Lisa, meanwhile, was trying to do damage control. This is all fake. She shrieked. Jack made this up. He's been threatening Danny for months. I pulled out my phone and held it up so everyone could see the screen. Funny you should mention that, Lisa. I hit play on her own voice memo. Lisa's own voice came through the phone speaker, clear as a bell. If Jack ever finds out, we'll destroy him. We'll say he hit you, threatened you, Whatever it takes. No one will believe him over us. We'll take him for everything he's got. Lisa's face drained of color. That's taken out of context. She stammered. Really? What context makes conspiracy to commit perjury sound better? The crowd was eating this up. The slow clap started again, growing into a thunderous applause. Vince climbed out of the mud, looking like something the tide dragged in, and pointed a muddy finger at me. This isn't over, Dalton. Oh, Vince, I said, smiling for the first time in months, the exhaustion finally lifting. It hasn't even started. The Stillwater Construction Company's main site was a half-built office complex, all concrete and steel beams reaching into the darkness. I'd been working there part-time for the extra money she blew on her girls' trips. It was just past midnight when I got the text I'd been waiting for. Unknown number. You think you're smart, a-hole? Meet me at the construction site. Time to settle this like men. Mike and I were ready. We'd spent the afternoon preparing. The portable toilets that served the site were scheduled to be cleaned tomorrow morning, which meant they were currently ripe. Mike had used his crane to position one of them directly over the foundation pit for the building's elevator shaft, a hole about 8 feet deep and 10 feet wide, currently filled with about 2 feet of muddy, foul water. The plan was simple. Lure Vince into the toilet, then tip it into the pit. Humiliating? Yes. Dangerous? No. Illegal? Probably. But I was past caring about legalities when they were planning to send me to jail. Vince arrived in his red Charger. The man had zero subtlety. There you are, he called out when he saw me, trying to look tough in his mud-stained leather jacket. Ready to apologize for humiliating me in front of the whole town? Actually, Vince, I was thinking you might want to apologize to me. You know, for screwing my wife on my property. He laughed, a harsh, unpleasant sound. Your wife came to me, buddy. Said she was tired of being married to a Limp Johnson loser who couldn't satisfy her. Interesting. Is that before or after you told her about the gambling debts you owed to those guys in Portland? His face changed instantly. How do you know about that? Small town, Vince. People talk, especially when you're 3 months behind on your shop rent, and your bookmaker is asking around about your whereabouts. I started walking toward him. It became my business when you decided to use my wife as your personal stress relief. But hey, I'm a reasonable guy. Maybe we can work something out. What kind of something? Well, you're obviously in a tight spot financially, and I'm obviously in need of some closure. You leave town permanently, and I don't share some very interesting information I have about your insurance claims. I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo of his Charger's odometer taken through the window at the festival. See, Vince? You filed a claim last year for hail damage. Claimed it had only 45,000 miles on it. But look at this photo. 67,000 miles. That's insurance fraud, buddy. Felony charges. You son of a witch, he screamed, lunging at me. I sidestepped and let his momentum carry him past me, then stuck out my foot. Vince went down hard, rolling across the muddy ground. He got up even angrier and charged again. You know what, Vince? If you need a minute to cool off, there's a bathroom right over there. I pointed to the portable toilet we positioned over the pit. He came at me again. This time, I grabbed his jacket and used his own momentum to spin him around, sending him stumbling directly toward the toilet. Vince, being the brilliant tactician he was, ducked behind it, thinking he could ambush me from there. That's when Big Mike fired up the crane. The mechanical arm swung over and hooked onto the top of the portable toilet. Vince, realizing what was happening, tried to run, but his feet slipped on the muddy ground. What the heck? The crane lifted the toilet with Vince clinging to it up into the air and over the foundation pit. Last chance, Vince. I shouted. Leave town or take a bath. Go to heck. Mike released the crane's hook. The portable toilet, with Vince still holding on to it, dropped 8 feet into the muddy pit with a monumental splash. I walked to the edge and looked down. Vince was standing waist deep in foul, muddy water and construction debris, sputtering and cursing. You know, Vince, that's exactly where you belong, I said. In the crap where you've always been. I'll sue you. I'll have you arrested. With what evidence? You texted me to meet you here for a fight. There are no witnesses except Mike, and he's going to say you fell in while trying to attack me. Self-defense, really. I tossed a rope down to him. Climb out, get in your car, and drive away. If I see you in Oak Haven again, the next pit will be deeper. He took 20 minutes to climb out. He looked like something that had crawled out of a sewer. He didn't say another word, just walked to his car and drove away, leaving a smell that would probably linger for weeks. The Red Lantern was busier than usual. I was holding court, enjoying the laughter and the first genuine smiles I'd had in months. Officer Dugan, the town cop, was even chuckling. "Jack," he said, "I probably don't want to know the details, but please tell me nobody got seriously hurt." "Just his pride, officer. Just his pride." That's when the door opened and Danielle walked in, followed by Lisa and a shell-shocked Pete Morrison. She was wearing her best business suit, the full power outfit, ready to make a scene. "Jack," she said loudly, making sure everyone could hear. "We need to talk now." "We're talking," I said calmly, not getting up. "What's on your mind, Danny?" "What's on my mind is that you've lost your freaking mind. First, you locked me out of my own house." "Your house?" I interrupted. "Funny, the deed says otherwise." She doubled down, accusing me of faking texts and assaulting Vince. Officer Dugan cleared his throat. "Actually, ma'am, Mr. Calder never filed a complaint. In fact, he seems to have left town rather suddenly." I stood up now, facing her directly. "In front of all these witnesses, Danny, I want you to tell everyone exactly how I've been threatening you." She faltered, looking around the silent bar. He stole money from our joint account." "I withdrew my own money from an account I opened and funded. Also perfectly legal," I corrected. Lisa stepped forward, desperation in her eyes. "He's been harassing both of us, making threatening phone calls." I pulled out my phone again. "That's interesting, Lisa, because I have a record of every call I've made in the past month. But you know what I do have? Recordings of some very interesting conversations, like the one where you and Danny planned to frame me for domestic violence." I looked at Officer Dugan. "Isn't that right, officer? If someone's planning to file false police reports, that would be a crime." Dugan nodded, uncomfortable but confirming. Pete Morrison finally spoke up. "Look, Jack, we all made mistakes here. Maybe we can work something out, man to man." "Man to man? Pete, you're a married man with 2 kids who was screwing my wife. What exactly do you think we have to discuss? You lost your family because you're a cheating scumbag. I just made sure everyone knew about it." Danielle made one last desperate play. "Jack, please, we can work this out. I made mistakes, but we can go to counseling. We can fix this." I looked at her for a long moment. This woman I'd loved. This woman who'd been planning to destroy me. "Danny, do you remember what you said to your friends that night about how I'd never leave you no matter what you did?" She nodded, tears starting to form. "You were right. I wouldn't leave you." I paused, letting that sink in. "But I never said I wouldn't make you leave me." I reached into my jacket and pulled out an envelope. "These are divorce papers. No fault. Sign these papers and walk away with half of what's legitimately ours. Or you can fight me, and I'll make sure every detail of your affairs becomes public record in divorce court. Every text message, every photo, every voice recording, all of it." I looked around the bar, making sure everyone was listening. "See, Danny, you always underestimated me. You thought I was weak. I was weak enough to love you unconditionally for 15 years while you treated me like garbage. But I stepped closer to her. You were wrong about everything else. Weak doesn't mean stupid, and it sure as heck doesn't mean helpless." I raised my beer bottle, addressing the entire bar. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to make a toast. To my wife, Danielle Dalton. She always said I'd never leave her. She was absolutely right." I took a sip of beer, then looked back at her. "I didn't leave you, Danny. I made you leave me. There's a difference." The entire bar erupted in applause. Danielle looked around, saw nothing but judgment and contempt, and ran out. Lisa trailed behind her. Pete left without a word. Vince never came back to Oak Haven. Pete Morrison moved to Portland. Dr. Sam quietly closed his practice and relocated. Danielle signed the divorce papers 3 days later and moved back to Boston. Her reputation had preceded her. 6 months later, Mrs. Rose told me, "Jack, dear, my podcast Oak Haven Scandals is a huge success. Your festival revenge episode has been downloaded over 250,000 times. They're calling it the Oak Haven cheating ring." I walked home that night and felt a peace I hadn't felt in years. I wasn't weak. I wasn't stupid. I was just a man who'd finally learned the difference between love and respect. Revenge is a dish best served publicly, thoroughly, and with a side of justice. And in Oak Haven, Vermont, justice was served. If you found Jake's story of turning the tables inspiring, Give this video a thumbs up and let me know in the comments what you would have done in his place. Subscribe for more true stories of people who took back control when life hit them hardest. Thanks for watching.